Hey everybody, it's me, Steve Schnee, the CD Junkie. On this episode of CD Junkie, I'm going to be talking about the father of DIY recordings, the grandfather of DIY recordings, heck, the great-grandfather of DIY recordings, a gentleman with hundreds of cassette albums to his name, recordings dating back to, I believe, the late 60s, and his name is STEVIE Moore. I know that I've discussed him on a previous episode of CD Junkie, but I wanted to give you an update because at the end of this video, I have a medley of great tracks. Now, I'm a pop kid. STEVIE Moore is more than pop. He is rock, he's folk, he's country, he's pop. He's anything he wants to be at that given moment. He records everything at home, and as I said, he is the cassette king. He's released hundreds and hundreds of albums on cassette over the decades. And that's how he built his name and his following. And of course, turn that into LPs later on, CDRs, CDs, so much. An incredibly gifted, talented. When you hear an STEVIE Moore song, whether he's singing in his lower register or whether he's hitting that odd falsetto, it's incredible. He sings in his natural southern drawl, but he also will sing songs with a British accent or with no accent at all. He's really fun. And like I said, I'm a pop kid, and I found so many great melodic moments throughout his career. He's very experimental. So there may be albums in his catalog that are entirely experimental, but I respect the guy because he releases what he records, whatever moves him at the moment. And each album could be 7, 8, 9 different styles. Very, very diverse. But I like to start these episodes off by telling you how I got into the artist. And that's because I used to read Trouser Press magazine, probably the greatest magazine geared towards kids like me who were really into new wave, power pop, and all those kinds of bands. You'd read articles about The Clash, Undertones, Shoes, all this great stuff that I loved, but you'd see ads for STEVIE Moore Cassette Club. You'd see reviews of STEVIE Moore cassettes, and it always intrigued me because they compared him to like black vinyl shoes, that sort of sound where it's all self-recorded, DIY, and then released in various formats at that time, cassette. And I finally found my first STEVIE Moore vinyl in 1984, a 2-record album released on a French label called New Rose. And the album was called Everything You Always Wanted to Know About STEVIE Moore, But Were Afraid to Ask. And it is incredible. I'm going to showcase that. I'm going to go through the catalog here real fast because of the fact that I have a 6.5, 7-minute medley at the end of this video that's going to show you just the great, wonderful melodies. But let me forewarn you, if you're a fan of, these heavily professional studio recordings, slick and glossy, you may not immediately take to STEVIE Moore, but trust me, if you give him a chance, you're just going to be showered in great hooks and melodies. Now let's start with these CDs. I may have some of the dates slightly wrong because it's really kind of hard to pin things down when there's been so many reissues and stuff, but let's start in 1975 with STEVIE Moore Reforms the Beatles. And this is a great collection. It's all instrumental versions of Beatles songs. And there's a little homage to Sgt. Pepper there. And it's really, really wonderful. Odd, eccentric, strange, but really pleasing because, it's STEVIE Moore's unique take on the Beatles. Now, in 1976, he released his first vinyl after lots and lots of cassette releases. He put out an LP called Phonography. And there's the CD version, and this contains bonus tracks. And it just starts to reveal the guy's true, unique talent. Now, when I start talking about outsider-type music, he's somewhere between Daniel Johnston and The Residents, but he's really melodic-oriented. And trust me, I find tons of melodies in The Residents' music, especially their first 10 years or so. Let's go on to the next STEVIE Moore album. That would be Delicate Tension. This came out in 1978. And that has bonus tracks as well. Coming in February 2023 is a reissue of his album Games and Groceries on CD. This is going to be the first time on CD for that full album. I'm very excited about that. And that album originally came out in 1978 as well. And I recommend you keep an eye out for that. Let's go into 1979. There's an album called Clack. I believe that some of the stuff was his first upper scale recordings. I don't know if he was in an actual real studio, but he had better equipment. But he could have been, in 8-track studio. I'm not sure, but it still sounds wonderful. Lots of great songs. Remember I told you about the compilation I bought in 1984, which was my first listen, my first experience with the music of R. Stevie Moore. That is on CD. And a lot of these CDs, by the way, were reissued by a label called Cordelia Records. And all or most of them should still be available, but they may be hard to get. I'm not exactly sure. But that's a 2 CD set, has some bonus tracks. And this is a virtual introduction to the world of R. Stevie Moore up to that point, which is 1984, and loads and loads of great stuff there. That same year came another compilation called What's the Point? And there's that there. And I believe that there's probably some crossover. In fact, a lot of the compilations I'm going to show you, you have to realize that he put out hundreds, that's right, hundreds upon hundreds of albums on cassette. So they're never going to be able to release all of that on CD. So they put out compilation vinyl, or they put out compilation CDs, and some of them do have crossover, but a majority of each compilation is exclusive to that release. Now let's go on to another album that had come out on vinyl that I used to own many years ago, 1985, an album called Verve. This is both pop and odd experimental, and it has bonus tracks, and it's wonderful. Let's go into 1986 when he put out an album. He actually went into the studio and recorded an album, and it's called Glad Music. Guess what album cover that's an homage to? And it's full of great tunes. He went back and re-recorded some of his songs. And there's a song or two on here. Remember when there were rumors that there were like 2 unreleased Beatles songs? I think they were called Colliding Circles and Pink Litmus Paper Shirt. He actually has a song called Colliding Circles on this album, and a bonus track is Pink Litmus Paper Shirt. Those were rumors that I had heard years ago. And of course, there were Beatles songs that did not exist, but he took the song titles and he wrote songs based on those song titles. Glad Music is another great entry point into the world of R. Stevie Moore. Absolutely wonderful. Teenage Spectacular came out in 1987, and this is the follow-up to Glad Music. Now here's an album that it's been listed as 1981, 1987, and it is called R. Stevie Moore 1952 to 19 ? And has some bonus tracks on there as well. Lots of great material. R. Stevie Moore is not for everybody. If you love DIY recordings, the audio quality, it varies at some point. Musicians who actually record demos, in their bedroom on their boombox or on their reel-to-reel or on their, 4-track or 8-track machines, they're going to totally connect with all these things because these sound like, they were recorded in a bedroom, but there's so much spirit and heart in them that it's hard to deny how great this stuff is. Well, in 1990, it was too hard to hold back the R. Stevie Moore magic, so out comes Greatest Hits. Now, it is not called Greatest Hits. Take a closer look there. And this is a compilation of tracks from Everything You Wanted to Know, Glad Music, Teenage Spectacular, and an album called Warning. And I don't believe Warning's actually come out on CD, but this is a nice compilation, a nice gateway into the world of R. Stevie Moore. In 1993 was another compilation called Contact Risk, and not much crossover with what had come before, and that's a great little compilation. Another compilation came out in 1999. It's called The Future is Worse Than the Past. And I think I'm just going to stop saying I recommend this or you should check this out, because all this stuff you really should. And there is Nevertheless Optimistic, which is another comp, and that came out in 2003. In 2006, he released Thoroughly Years, Phonography 2. I believe they cobbled together a collection of songs that would have followed Phonography, or they just decided to call it Phonography 2 just to cash in on the big sales of the first Phonography. In 2008, Cherry Red Records from the UK caught the R. Stevie Moore bug, and they released Meet the R. Stevie Moore. And of course, that is an homage to an album by the Rolling Stones. No, not really. It's the Beatles. But yeah, this is another great compilation. For some, this might be easier to find. This does have a lot of songs that were on previous compilations. But that one was followed in 2009 by Me Too, another compilation by R. Stevie Moore on Cherry Red Records. In 2012, out came Lo-Fi High Fives, a kind of best of. And again, there are songs on these things that are exclusive to these particular compilations, that are pulled from his vast cassette catalog. Oh, here's yet another compilation, R. Stevie Moore, Once and For All. And another compilation called Personal Appeal. And when I call them compilations, for some people, these are just regular albums. because, once and for all, personal appeal. People don't realize he has thousands of songs recorded. And so it's really nice. I call them compilations because they're grabbing from the past. Just look at them as real legit albums because, a lot of these are appearing on CD for the first time. In 2015, he made an album with Jason Faulkner from Jellyfish, the 3 O'Clock. That was called Make It Be. And that came out in 2015. And he does re-record some old songs, but there's new stuff on here as well. It's very full production. It doesn't sound DIY, but it has that our Stevie Moore spirit to it. And speaking of DIY, now most of that stuff covered the 70s and 80s, but there is a compilation here called World War IV. It's a 2 CD set, and this covers stuff later than that. It's a compilation, so you can get an idea what he was doing basically from the early 90s onwards, I believe. But that's a nice little compilation there. And then finally, in 2019, he released an album called Afterlife, and that's on Bar None Records. Now, the thing about our Stevie Moore is he's done a lot of cover versions. Most of his recordings are all originals. He has actually worked with people, like I said, Jason Faulkner. He's worked with Ariel Pink. And also, there is a track out there called Dates. He had an original version, but then he re-recorded it, and that featured Dave Gregory from XTC. And some of the stuff that I've talked about, you're going to hear in this medley that I'm going to play for you right now. It's really wonderful. Give it a listen, and I'll see you on the other side.
Why should I love you as much as I do? I want to sing. Why should I love you? Yeah. All right. Come on. Love you. Why won't you ever let me love you? You are wise and you're beautiful to me. I wanna hold you. You are crazy, you are boring, you are lazy, you're ignoring all my feelings. Perfection is a dull routine, a teen routine. I like to stay home, to go, going out and have a ball. I like to stay home and safe and quiet and private inside me. Hates a lot to do a lot, and I gotten good at the game. So why don't we all quit at the topic of same? I woke at the crack of dawn and laughed at what I had on. Everyone was standing over me, handing me compatibility. Mommy's polishing pottery and daddy wins the lottery and grandma's little nephew's in bed. I'm a cool daddy-o, cool daddy-o. Bubba's boring Barbara and Sissy's in the shower. And the later on, listen to all the song. But I want you, and I need you, and I really hate to go. And the day I love you more.
But each other the one that keeps me from having fun, just because you're my son. There was a time when I was always scared.
Oh no, don't let me go to the dogs. When I desire to spend my whole life with you. Oh no, don't go away with your dogs.
There was an event which existed, an occurrence that you might know.
I know what it's like firsthand. I remember how it is firsthand. Understand? Got a rhythm and I don't know what to do with it. Like, well, okay.
tell him we love ourselves, don't we?
Everybody says they're going crazy, but they don't seem to mind. Everybody's in a jetliner that goes up to the sky. I know that you
Impossible, impossible, it's possible, impossible, it's probable, improbable now. You are just on to the problem.
You're wonderful.
Thank you. I'm aware of that.
That's it. I really appreciate you watching this video and allowing me to discuss the music of R. Stevie Moore. I've been a big fan for close to 40 years now. Now, I hope this video encourages you to check his music out. I will provide you a couple links. Number one, you're going to get his Bandcamp link. I don't think that he actually sells cassettes anymore, but he has all of his cassettes transferred digitally, and you can go to his Bandcamp page and you can listen and you can buy whatever you want. I recommend you do that. Cordelia Records is also a label that sells our Stevie Moore CDs. You can find most of the stuff online, Discogs, Amazon, eBay, and you can find a bunch of vinyl out there too. I really recommend you check him out. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate you. Remember to like, comment, share, subscribe, to ring that bell for future notifications. And until the next time, remember me. I'm R. Stevie Schnee, the CD Junkie.